With his question mark umbrella and matching jumper, Sylvester McCoy was possibly simultaneously both the silliest and darkest of the Doctors. Always one step ahead of everyone else, the Seventh Doctor would trick everyone into thinking he was a fool while calmly moving his chess pieces about to get the desired result and win the battle. His era had some really good stories, but of course also some of the worst stories, but that's not what we're focusing on today. No, we're focusing on his best. Here is the top 5 stories from the Sylvester McCoy era of Doctor Who. Battlefield. In my experience, a lot of people don't seem to like this one for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's a delightful romp. For a British science fantasy show like this, I'm surprised it took them so long to cross over with Arthurian legend. I really like the idea of the Doctor finding out he's Merlin in the future. It also makes a refreshing change from the Seventh Doctor knowing what's happening because of actions he already took, to the Seventh Doctor not knowing what's happening because of actions he has yet to take. It's a fun aspect of time travel that doesn't get explored very often. Also, it's got the Brigadier back for another outing with a Doctor he hadn't met yet, and the Brigadier gets a great heroic scene which was originally supposed to kill him off apparently, but the crew just didn't have the heart. I'm glad they didn't. The only thing that kind of disappointed me about this story is that the knights all hail from another dimension. I mean, how did we get the legends here then? Did it happen both worlds? Did the legends somehow spread to our universe? I guess they had to do it to get different powers and science fiction guns and stuff. I don't know. I do hope this future Merlin thing does get explored at some point in the future. I could think it'd be fun. As of recording this video, there is apparently a 10th Doctor book about Camelot coming out soon. Not sure if it's connected or not, but it would be cool if it was. The Curse of Fenric. Took me a while to come around to this one. First time I saw it years ago, I thought it was just a convoluted mess. But let's face it, most of the McCoy era is a bit of a convoluted mess. Anyways, I think this is an enjoyable convoluted mess. I think it's got a lot of good ideas. The Viking stuff is kind of cool, and I like what they tried to do with Ace's character development here. I feel like it maybe needed another draft to make that even better, but at least they tried. Other than that, the story has great action, suspense, and scares. There's something about that scene where the girls coax the soldier into the water that's just the right amount of creepy. Also, the makeup is really great. I think these are some of the best costume designs in the classic series. All in all, a really good classic 7th Doctor adventure. The greatest show in the galaxy. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. When I was deciding what to put on the list, it was kind of a toss-up between this and Happiness Patrol. They're both pretty good stories with interesting ideas, but I think this one slightly rises above the other one. Circuses are always a great place for a bizarre story, and this is definitely a bizarre story, but in a good way. It's got some really bizarre elements, like the 3 family members. I think that were well done. But it's also got a lot of interesting elements. Like, I like the characters of Captain Cook and Mags. The captain is a type of character you don't often get on a show like this, or any show really. He's not evil or good. In fact, when they first meet him, he's actually quite friendly. What he does throughout the rest of the story isn't because he hates anyone or has an evil scheme. He's just trying to survive. He's selfish. Makes for an interesting side character. As does Mags, although I have to say, I love monster movies and monster movie monsters, but she's my least favorite type of movie werewolf, where they just put a few fangs on her and tell her, "Ooh, go make growling noises. You'll be a werewolf." That's not a werewolf. That's a person with fangs in their mouth. There's nothing wolfish about it. But I get it's probably a budget thing, so that's fine. I just wish there could have been something more. Silver Nemesis. It's not perfect, and yes, it is kind of an inferior rewrite of Remembrance of the Daleks, but I think this story is underrated. It's got some interesting elements, such as characters from the past coming into the future, more mystery about the Doctor's past, which goes unanswered. I used to love that stuff as a kid. But yeah, speaking of unanswered, it should be unanswered. Looking at you, Chibnall. Seriously, if Chibnall had left the Timeless Child as like that one reference in the Ghost Monument, I would have been like, oh wow, cool, another hint. But, well, we won't get into that. Anyways, Silver Nemesis. It's got a great sequence of Ace destroying a Cyberman with only a slingshot and some gold nuggets. True, not all the story is executed very well, and there's these guys. But in comparison to some of the other stories in the era, I think this story deserves a lot more praise than it gets. Remembrance of the Daleks. Serving as the opener for the 25th anniversary season of the show, Remembrance is not just one of the best Sylvester McCoy stories, but one of the best Dalek stories. At least, that's my opinion. It was the first Sylvester McCoy story I bought on VHS when I was a kid, and also one of the ones I rewatched the most. There's just something about it. I think the whole story gets a satisfactory payoff. Something they tried several times during this era is those stories where the Doctor comes in pretty much already knowing what's going on, and he's kind of manipulating events to get the outcomes he wants. I'm not always sure that works. Sometimes it just makes the story confusing, but it does really work here. I think it gets a satisfactory payoff. And I think it's the only time that it works really well. Yeah, there's just something about this story. The characters are well written, the plot is well written. I always like that thing with the creepy little girl and how that's paid off. Also, the references to an unearthly child don't feel forced like they could have. The writer, Ben Aronovich, did it cleverly in that it's an important part of the plot, but doesn't overshadow it. You don't need to have seen all 25 years of the show to understand it. I saw this very early on in my fan journey, and I didn't get all the references, yet I didn't feel like I was missing out. That's the best way to do a story like this, and is only part of why this is probably the best story of Sylvester McCoy's era. In my opinion, at least. So what did you guys think of my list? Did you agree? Did you disagree? What are your favorite Sylvester McCoy stories? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.